This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information. Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, even in today's turbulent job market, a company's mission and what they stand for remains one of the top 3 factors in candidate attraction. And I really don't think that that's going to change. But it's so hard to determine culture from interviews and research. It's even hard to sort of understand what a culture's like, even if it's well described in words. There's something very intangible about it. And then if you're in an organization and your culture's not what you want it to be, what do you do about that? Rewiring a culture's, it's not about crafting clever value statements or running engagement surveys, or of course those are important, but it requires a fundamental shift in everything from mindset to the way that meetings are run. Cultural change is certainly not for the faint-hearted. Luckily, our guest today is the opposite of faint-hearted. Claire Smith is the people and culture lead for Gunnercooke. Claire has held leadership positions within HR for the last 5 or 6 years. And before that has done it all. Lawyer, marketing, sales, you name it. And that, I think, is what makes Claire so interesting. Claire, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Felix. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And thank you for the very warm welcome. Great to be on.
Yeah, any time. So could we just start with your journey into the crazy world of people in HR? Because it's anything but usual.
Of course, I'd love to, and you will have to stop me if I go on too much. I started off life as a lawyer and realised that I wasn't a brilliant lawyer, but I loved the people side of it. I loved helping people, looking after people, getting results for people. I just don't think technically I was brilliant, and I was offered an opportunity probably 4 or 5 years into my career to move into business development, focused on relationships. And I did that in professional services for 15, 16 years and hadn't realised that, just being around people, working with people, was really where my career was going to end up. And it was only in the pandemic when I was furloughed and made redundant from a role that I had to look at what else was out there. And I took a role. I'd previously been in legal services and moved into financial services in 2020. And that role had a big business development element to it. So I was kind of like, I can do business development. But when I got that role, this is Mortgage Advice Bureau in 2020, there was a bit of a light being shone on people, culture, and there's a few cracks starting to show. So that was where I got my first opportunity to go into people and culture, and I've never left. So I talk about from being a lawyer to business developer to now I think is my third and favourite career. So it's now called a squiggly career, I believe, Felix. But I'm in my third career.
Yeah, you seem to be the living embodiment of. I think I've got the book back here somewhere.
Exactly, squiggly career. So I have spent the last 5 years in a couple of roles, really focusing on the people and culture side, taking all that commercial experience I've had, all that time I've spent in professional services and the legal sector and financial services sector, to hone the skills of being able to talk to people, build relationships with people, influence people. So whilst I think it sounds like a strange move from lawyer to BD to people and culture, it now makes perfect sense to me. I love people, love making a difference, want my legacy to feel like that people enjoyed where they worked when I had a say in how the culture was within the business. So squiggly career, lawyer, BD, now people and culture, and I absolutely love that space that I'm in.
Claire, it's so interesting, and I love that we're seeing more people from different functions moving into the HR world. Do you think that it gives you a bit of a leg up on, I guess, career HR professional? Maybe that, let's not do it comparison. Have you found it useful to have that kind of overarching understanding of maybe the more commercial side of the organization?
Is a really great question, that, because I certainly moved into this space with a big chunk of imposter syndrome. So I was like, I've not got a CIPD qualification. Yes, I've got a law degree and a postgrad, and I was a qualified solicitor, but it really, that was something I had to consider about, could I do the job, which I think is just classic imposter syndrome. What I found as I've built my network in this space is probably about half the people I speak to, people and culture directors, CPOs, heads of people, haven't got the traditional HR CIPD background. So I think it's really interesting when I've been in a room and it's been kind of maybe 12, 15 people like me, about half the room haven't got the core CIPD qualifications, which I found really reassuring, actually. Where I think it's helped me is when seeking budget or resource or investment into people and culture, I can demonstrate the commercial benefits of doing that. And I smile because I say I put the commercial element on the fluffy stuff. And I think that certainly has helped, the fact that I have that commercial background and the fact that I've built relationships throughout my career. And I can then lean into that skill I've had of influencing. And also, it probably sounds a little bit basic, but I've been the beneficiary of employers who've had amazing cultures. When I was a lawyer, the law firm I worked for, when Best Companies was sponsored by the Sunday Times, they were a top 3 employer. And this is 2005. So I was kind of thinking, crikey. And then, roll forward, the business I was in 2019, 2020, were also a top 3 employer to work for. So I've been very lucky to be a beneficiary as an employee of businesses with amazing cultures. Now, those 2 businesses, one was a law firm and one was a call center. If they got it right and they could get it right, I think any business can get it right. And I've been very lucky to have that experience, and that's definitely helped me in the last 5 years of this career.
Well, great segue into culture. You're doing my job for me, Claire. But obviously, you've seen so many different cultures.
Yes.
You've worked for a number of amazing organizations.
Yes.
What makes a great culture at any specific business?
That is a really good question. If you can indulge me with a quote that I often refer back to about what culture is. Culture is the patterns of behavior that are encouraged, discouraged, or tolerated by people and systems over time. That is so powerful for me in terms of a culture, because you can, and I think you opened this episode talking about it's more than just values and posts in office and what we say our mission is or our vision is. It's what people experience from the minute they come into contact with your business, but then it's also what they see, feel, and experience whilst they're in your organization. And I think we sometimes forget that it's not just the people that create the culture, it's the systems and processes as well. And I think we quite often get very excited about creating a beautiful looking mission, vision, set of values without perhaps first testing, where are you today? Because everyone has a culture already. So I think it's interesting. I have seen it. You're absolutely right. I've been in some amazing cultures. And I've also seen when the cracks have started to show, and you can really look at if you go to the root cause of some of the problems businesses might face, whether that's churn, whether that's engagement, whether that's sales. If you go back, you can piece it back to what's going on with the culture of the business. And so I think for me, it's about looking at the behaviors you tolerate, the systems you have, the processes you have, and that will determine the culture you have. And I also talk about, we've all worked with a bad apple. And my cheesy joke is, if you are the bad apple, this is really awkward. But we've all, we can think back to our careers. I'm sure you have, worked in the past, Felix. A bad apple, they set the tone. And if, whether it's intentional or unintentional, these people behave in a certain way, that's the tone that sets the behaviors for the whole organization.
Yeah, there's a great matrix that's often in my head, which is the performance versus behavior alignment one. So your biggest risk is your high performance sort of toxic behavior point, not because of who they are, because of who they influence, and what that does to your culture, which I think's really, really interesting. So I love that quotation, by the way, around it's the what you encourage, what you tolerate as well.
Yeah.
So that's it from a sort of, I guess, structural perspective.
Yes.
What is it about? Presumably, different businesses need different cultures to succeed.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it that makes? How do you know what culture you need to build for the business that you are today? Because also maybe the culture you have today might not be the culture you need in 3 years, 5 years time.
Absolutely. And I think a really great example of that is when you look at the 5 years, post-pandemic, there have been periods of time where businesses will have needed to have resilience. And at that time, they will have needed people, behaviors around resilience, and for that period of time. And I think that now might be post, 5 years post-pandemic, there might be some different behaviors and values to help you achieve your vision. So going back to the beginning, it's looking at what the company's purpose is and what the vision is of the business. And the best example I've got from recently is in my role and where I'm at the moment with Gunnercooke, is we want to leave the world in a better place than we found it. So we're really, really clear about, I've just gone a bit goosebumpy. It's such a business with purpose. So it's really, really clear. We want to leave the world in a better place. We want to create a better world for our clients and our partners, for our people, for our communities. It's really, really strong. So we know the business we want to be. So then we build the business strategy around that. And what does that look like? And then we're looking at, okay, what roles and how do we need people to show up? How do you need people to show up to help you achieve that vision? And indulge me, please, one of our values, we've actually, made up the word, but it's called compassionomics. And that is all about kindness, because the founders of the business who want to leave the world in a better place than we found it, we want to make sure we look after our people. Then, okay, well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And for us, because we want to provide a better life for our people, that's about being a values and purpose-led business with a conscience. So we talk about kindness all the time and expect people to show up. We hire on the basis of this compassionomics. We talk about kindness all the time. And I think that for me is really strong. So we've set out the company vision and the difference we want to make and the purpose. Now, it doesn't mean we haven't got big commercial targets as well. Of course, we've got big commercial targets, but everything that underpins that, and that's been the same for the 15 years the business has been established, is about leaving the world in a better place. So I think the companies that hopefully, people listening to this is thinking about, have you got a real clear purpose? And that was, the work I did with Mortgage Advice Bureau was really, really clear purpose. They wanted to be the leading financial partner through life's key moments. I can still remember it. And it was, okay, what do we need to get there? Well, we want to create an amazing place to work. Right. What does amazing place to look like? And I think it's having that clarity, but to help you get there, you need to look at where you are today.
That's so cool. I want to bring us back to kindness. It's not something you hear a lot in the business world. It's not something that many would associate. I don't take this the wrong way, Claire, with a law firm. So it's wonderful to hear. It's really refreshing to hear that you put so much of a focus on kindness. How does that show up in the organization then?
For me, it's really obvious, kindness drives trust, and then trust drives performance. And, we are a fast-paced entrepreneurial law firm. We're not a traditional structure. We are a consultancy fee share model. So what that means is that all of our partners around the world are self-employed. So we're very much a service business. So the colleagues that I look after, or the employees, are looking after all those partners and helping them build their own practices. It's not just about being nice. We talk about being clear, being compassionate, and being human. So when I think about how we measure that and how you measure kindness, one of the things we talk about is peer-to-peer recognition. So we've created a system where colleagues it's called a recognition relay. So we've got a particular project at the moment, and we want to make people feel connected, rewarded, recognised. So we've launched a particular recognition relay where one person kicks it off, and then they nominate somebody for a shout out aligned to our values. And then the person who received the shout out, they have to do it the next day.
That's so cool. I love that.
And it has been so well received. So for the daily shout outs, there's then a bit of a goodies stash where somebody can just go and help themselves to a goodie. It just might be some chocolates. It might be a face mask. We're not talking high budget here. And we've been managing this in hybrid as well. So if somebody's won, I'm making sure that they're getting an electronic version of a goodie, whatever that may be. And then every week, their names go in a hat and they get to spin a wheel for a bigger prize. And we're shouting out why these people are being recognised on a Teams channel. So there's no complex system. There's no complex kind of rules to it. It's just a daily shout out via the Teams channel, link it to the values. And then every week we do a actual physical spin of a wheel in the office. So it's been challenging managing the hybrid element of it. I won't lie to you there, Felix. And also helping people recognise how they can reward and recognise colleagues has taken a little bit of education, and getting people to understand what those behaviours look like. What does it mean to be kind? Another of our values is laser focused. So helping people, so it's embedding the values as well that we've got. So yes, so that's been a really great thing. And I think when we talk about kindness, people have started to shout out people for being kind, for showing compassionomics. And that to me has been a real quick, simple win for peer-to-peer recognition. And that's how I've been measuring the kindness, by looking at how many shout outs and what people are shouting each other out for. And then I think the other thing we're just looking at the moment is weaving kind of kindness into when we're having regular one-to-ones, and just leaning into that, how it's showing up, and also talking about it at leadership and constantly talking about this kindness. And I think we talk about rituals a lot, and what does kindness look like in terms of rituals at Gunnercooke. And we do a lot of handwritten cards still.
Do you really?
So the founders of the business still do handwritten birthday cards. We're smaller, I get that, but there's still 100 colleagues supporting 500 global partners, and we do handwritten cards, handwritten notes, which some people might think sounds a little bit old-fashioned, but they just mean a lot. And I think talking, somebody who's been there less than 6 months, it is really wonderful to see that you can still do those small things that really matter to people.
Claire, that sounds very special. But I'm a sucker for this sort of stuff. So I'm wondering whether you have to deal with any sort of, because I think whenever you're sort of trying to do something different, dare I say it, that sounds a little fluffy on a cult, I mean, anywhere in an organization, you're prone to cynics. Have you come across people, at Gunnercooke or elsewhere that you've worked with a sort of cultural rollout where it's just been really difficult to get like someone who's, we were talking about the sort of saboteurs earlier, but I was thinking specifically from a values and mindset perspective, rather than doing anything negative if they're just the one rolling their eyes in the corner.
Yeah, and do you know what, you made me smile when you said the word cynic, because it's a word I've used before. I've definitely flipped my language to more realists. So they've seen it before, they've seen things not work before, and I talk fondly, whenever I talk about culture, I talk fondly about Sharon from finance. And Sharon from finance was a colleague I used to work with, and she'd been at the business, I think, 15 years, and I invited her to join the Culture Champions group. I'd been advised not to because she was a cynic. And I kind of thought, well, no, she's got some value and she's got some stories to share. And she shared with me why previous initiatives hadn't worked. And she also didn't understand how we could show her how her role would impact the overall mission and vision. So we worked together. This is back at Mortgage Advice Bureau. We worked together, and she became one of the biggest supporters, because not only did I listen to her,
Wow.
and not only did she have a really important role in helping shape the newly defined mission, vision, and values, but then she was part of the people and the team that helped people understand the role they had to play in achieving the vision. So, for example, the vision was to be the leading financial partner through life's key moments. My bit of that was creating an amazing place to work. There was also an element around amazing customer service and transforming the mortgage industry. And in her role in finance, she then understood if she dealt with queries promptly, efficiently, with a smile on her face, if she resolved queries, that was helping us achieve our vision. And that's a big piece of work that I think I underestimated. I've totally underestimated that in the past. That once you've created your mission, vision, and values, there's a huge project then to embed them, because the embedding piece is the hard work. And I've definitely been guilty in the past of thinking, oh, we're good to go. So yes, I've met cynics, and nobody is going to be living and breathing your values brilliantly every single day. So I would talk to people who perhaps aren't displaying the values regularly about their stretches. So we all have our strengths and we all have our stretches. At Gunnercooke, my stretch might be being laser focused, because I'm just like, look at this new shiny thing over there. So for me, I recognize that I will not be living and breathing laser like focused every single day. But Compassionomics, yeah, I think that's one of my strengths. So I think it's looking at the strengths and stretches you've got in the teams. And also, you don't need to do, and I'm going off on a tangent here, you don't need to do everything all at once.
We love tangents on this show.
You don't need to do everything with everybody all the time. So you could just trial something with a team. So we talk a lot about teamship rules, and team-paced embedding is something I've done a lot of work on. And working with teams to understand what values mean to them in their team. And I mean, this goes back to the Clive Woodward era of when he was, kind of like talking about teamship rules with, I think it was England Rugby World Cup way back when. And I think he talked about these teamship rules. And I think if you can get the teams to come up with how they want to work together, and layer that with your values, people then buy into it. But also then people get comfortable to perhaps call out when someone isn't necessarily living and breathing the values.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And that's, I think, a big piece of work. The teamship and the team-based embedding work is crucial to any business that's looking to have a great culture with the right values and the right mission and vision.
It's really interesting because we're sort of Instant Impact. We're sort of mid culture shift at the moment, and we've done the defining and the processes, and we're 3 months into it, so it's still early doors. But that big piece around the teamship rules is right next on our agenda. I'm one of those ones where we're moving so fast. I'm glad you brought it up now, so it doesn't fall off. It's like a good reminder within all of this. But you're so right. There's with it, it's felt like we've kind of brute forced the culture change so far, but that will only stick for so long. And you need that culture to become. People need to sort of make it their own, don't they?
They do need to make it their own, and you've got a brilliant opportunity now. If you've done that piece of work now, you're not going to change things overnight, and we're all human beings, and we have our own values and our own behaviors. And I think just map it out, take the employee life cycle, and take it bit by bit. So looking at your job ads. Okay, what are your job ads saying? Do your job adverts talk about your mission, your values? Then when it comes to the hiring managers, have you got the hiring managers upskilled to ask questions that will bring out the values from potential candidates that lean into your values? So I was asked in my interview for Gunnercooke, talk to us about kindness, talk to us about empathy. And you now see big global brands talking much more about this. So, I mean, Patagonia, amazing organization, offer a whole host of benefits. And I mean, kindness is just baked into their business. You've got big brands, your Microsoft, your Salesforce, Unilevers are all now starting to build in empathy and kindness. And I think if you can start to embed your values into every step, right through to exit interviews, right, and also the pulse surveys, and of course, I think you said that, engagement surveys are important at the start of this episode. They're a really good way to track trust. So I talk about engagement surveys all the time, but the actual stats I look at. So I look at how many people, of course, complete the survey. Great. Yeah, you got a great number. How many people are prepared to put their name? Because if you start tracking the people prepared to put their name to the survey, you're building trust. I also track side by side, how happy are you? Really, really easy, quick, how happy are you to track that. And then the other two areas I track side by side are, do you see yourself here in 12 months? And would you recommend us as an employer? And the reason I've specifically mentioned those two metrics are, if people still see themselves working in your business in 12 months, but you've got a really low NPS score, would you recommend someone to work here? They're only with you through kind of laziness, that they can't bother getting another job, or they know that they're being well paid for where they are today, or it's just too hard work to think about. And I think you need to look at these metrics to see what's going on. And so employment engagement surveys are really good for tracking, but I extend it out to all sorts of culture measures, from engagement to how people are getting involved with work activities, socials, recognition. So I think you do need to measure it to see how you're doing, and also give you that baseline of where you're starting from today. I know I'm moving at the moment. We're looking at surveys every 6 months, just because I'm relatively new. We will get into a rhythm and much more regular pulse surveys. And shock horror, I love being in the office. We've just launched this amazing design your life concept of you decide when you come in.
Wow, that's cool.
If that isn't not revolutionary. So when all the other law firms and corporates around us are saying you have to be mandated in 3 days, we're saying we trust you, design your life and do what works for you. With, of course, the parameters, it's got to work for the business, it's got to work for each other, it's got to work for you. So going back to our vision of, making, lives better for our people, we're giving people the autonomy to design their life and their work-life blend. But we're making sure we're giving people plenty of reasons to come in, whether that's socials, whether that's a great working environment, whether that's team huddles, whether that's cross-team meetings and events. And that has landed really well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I've gone off on a tangent there. Sorry, Felix. Total tangent.
No, it's so powerful. Well, culture's a dangerous topic to talk about and try and stay on on one single track, isn't it? Because as you said right at the beginning, it kind of bleeds into. I mean, it is almost by definition everything.
It is everything, yeah.
But given all of the tangents we've been off on, and given all of the interesting conversations, I looked up at the time. I can't believe it. We are out of time.
What?
So. I know. Well, let me ask you one more question, because I think there's one big element that we haven't covered here. What do you do if you are a people leader who's identified the need for cultural change, but your CEO is not on board?
That is a great question, Felix. So in my experience, it's about bringing them on a journey. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you have to bring them on that journey, because without their backing, it's really difficult to get momentum in the business. Having said that, if you've got the autonomy to try something with a smaller group, maybe your own team or a department or a ring fence part of the business, if you can trial something that shows it will make a difference, but also understanding what the CEO's drivers are, what is it that's stopping them thinking that this is worth investing in? Fortunately, when I was at MAB, they tried it twice before and it hadn't got off the ground. They tried to go it alone and it hadn't got off the ground, and they hadn't had anyone sitting around the table representing people. So I think because the cracks had started to show as well, and with the CEO, he was a fantastic supporter of this, because the cracks had started to show, churn was up, engagement was down. So I think you take your CEO on a journey, you will have cracks showing. And if not, I think look at a smaller group of people to see what you can trial and test. And then you need some other voices in the room to support you to help with that influencing of that leader. But if you can't get that traction, you've tried everything, it's not you, it's them. It's what I would say, because it's not going to work for everybody. And sometimes, you are beating your head up against a brick wall. And I think you have to admit sometimes that might not, be the right place for you. But I'm really, really proud and, excited of, the experiences I've had where the leadership have bought into it. And the conversation of culture now is so much more prevalent than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I think CEOs, FDs, businesses are really seeing the importance of this. And the shareholders, if you get this right, your shareholders will see a far greater return. Your people will be happier and your business will thrive. So yeah, I implore anyone who hasn't looked at this to have a look at it and start somewhere.
Yeah, what's not to love? Claire, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Great to see you, Felix.